Preston Thorne, host of the early game on 107.5 and former defensive tackle for your South Carolina football program. What's up, man?
What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing today?
Hey, you look good. You sound good. Where are you? You in a break room somewhere? Where are we?
I'm in the studio. I'm in the studio B of 107.5. So we're still here in one of the got these cool sound pads up. So I should sound very good delivering bad news today. We'll see.
Oh no! Don't deliver bad news. We don't want that. Look, Carolina obviously this past weekend had a lot of issues up at Missouri, and somehow we're still, for the large majority of it, in the ball game with a chance to win it. Preston, if they could maybe not shoot themselves in the foot, they might be coming home with a victory in the other Columbia, but they did not. They fall. What was the biggest issue in your mind on Saturday night?
I'm sure it's been said over and over and over again, but operational things, pre-snap penalties, it's just very difficult to give yourself an opportunity to win against a very good team when you're starting 1st and 15 or you're making situations a little bit tougher on you than that. And so for me, that's something that has to be corrected as you move forward throughout the season. It can be corrected, and I do have faith that it will be, but that has to be done if you want to compete on the stage.
What is the process that you take to correct that?
Well, Jamie, I played a long time ago, so I don't know if the processes that was used to correct it when I played are still available to the coaches. But I'll say it's going to take a lot more attention to detail during practice. A lot more emphasis on if and when those things happen in practice. It might be sacrificing reps or sacrificing things that you want to get to in order to make sure that you are taking care of those things. Obviously, holding people accountable, whatever that looks like for this team. But I do think sometimes, especially in at all sports, but I think in college, you don't want to get through your script, or you want to make sure we get this look today, or we want to make sure we do those things. And you might have to slow down, sacrifice some of those things to make sure that we will not ever get there unless we take care of some of these operational things.
Yeah, first of all, it was quite an honor and blessing to be on the air yesterday for a little bit with our buddy Bill Gunter, who's back in the studio.
Yes.
And I'm just so happy for Bill. I mentioned to Bill yesterday not to minimize South Carolina football because it's our livelihood, obviously, and what we do on a day-to-day basis. But Connor and Travian and Bill and many of us out there have folks going through issues in life. It does put a lot into perspective. It really does. At the end of the day, look, I hate when they lose, but I'd rather be alive too. So I'm glad Bill's back in there first and foremost. So Bill, if you're watching or listening, probably stealing our information to regurgitate as your own later on. We just want you to know that we love you and we're happy to see it. But, we were talking about some of this yesterday. Don't you just wish that there was like one issue, man, I wish we could just say this is a weakness of this team. We got to figure out a way to get better or get around it. But there have been a lot of issues. And, you're talking about, you mentioned the pre-snap penalties. I mean, 14 penalties, 98, like that. They're 127th in the country in penalties committed as a program. That's awful. They can't run the football, Preston. I mean, -6 yards in the run game. You can slice it and dice it however you want. Shane Beamer wasn't making any excuses. He flat out said, this is terrible, and we got to figure it out. And then, on your side of the ball, for the second straight week, they don't tackle well. And I want to give those guys from Missouri credit. I mean, everybody mentioned the Hardy kid. Keep in mind, the Roberts kid was running through tackles too. I mean, it wasn't a good deal. I look at all that, and the general word starts with an S, and you don't ever want to hear it, and that's soft. I don't think it's a soft football team. I don't believe that at all. I believe Luke Day and his staff are tremendous, and I believe Shane Beamer is tremendous. But when you watch it, that's what it comes across as, and these are all detail-oriented type things. So does it make you question what's been going on the last 8 months, the preparation for this season? I don't know that they've done anything any different from years past.
I think that's I think it's fair question to ask as you go into the season, especially with the expectations that you have. There felt like there should have been a sense of urgency. I always hesitate to judge somebody's motives in the game because we don't know. So I won't say that, but what we can say is the results are not working. So we can look at the techniques that they're using as far as tackling. That's not happening. As far as blocking is concerned, it's not working. And then even when you talk about the amount of penalties, that's why I kind of even just isolated the pre-snap stuff, because penalties happen throughout the game, whether you're straining to make a play or you're trying to do this. And so some of those may be excusable, but the idea of, are you tackling is a lot of those things are want to type of issues. There's no question whether they're strong enough, they're fast enough, all of those types of things. But have they worked on the techniques that they need to get to be able to make those plays? And after the Vandy game, I was like, that could have just been something. But now it's 2 games in a row, and what you don't want it to be is this a trend? And I'll go back to what I was just saying. Tackling is not something that you want to be wasting time on as a coach at this type of level. You want to be thinking about schemes and how we can prevent players and all these types of ideas. But tackling is fundamental football, is very much at the basics of what you have to do. So I would imagine this week is not going to be about so much scheme. It's going to be about going back to the basics of what you need to do in order to be a successful football team. And just those 2 things, being able to block and tackle, that's as basic as it gets.
Mm-hmm. How about Lenoris on Saturday night? Give me your evaluation of him.
I think you saw the 2 sides of the coin, man. He made some throws that I'm pretty confident. I haven't seen anybody else in the country be able to make that one throw going out of bounds to Nick Harborough.
Beautiful.
That's a first round pick throw.
Yeah.
That'll be on his clip. That'll be on his highlight tape.
Right.
And even dropping it in the bucket to Van Dreves for the touchdown, he made some throws that were incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, let me say this. I'm not sure this game is even this close if he doesn't make some of the plays that he made. That being said, we need him to be exceptional. And some of those being exceptional, obviously you can't take sacks when you don't need to. The goal line play, a third down play, taking a sack, going backwards. He just made some plays that were not smart football plays. And for as much as the athleticism that he has, we need him to also not make the negative plays. And so that's just his lot in life. We're depending on you for a lot of things, and that has to happen. So I guess to say those are just the 2 sides of him right now.
No, you're good.
I had a defensive question. Where were you going, Jamie?
Well, I have one more follow-up on Lenoris.
Yeah, follow up on that one, and we'll go defense.
I'll squeeze that in. You know what worries me a little bit about that? You mentioned some of those plays that went backwards where he was kind of trying to run around figuring out what to do. Do you recall seeing any of that last season? Because I don't. I feel like he stepped through it and made things happen. That worries me. I feel like that is that's part of the development web with him, and he's kind of caught in you remember the show? What was the show? Stranger Things. You remember what they call it? The Upside Down. I feel like there's certain parts of his game where he used to be very, very confident. Now, it might have not been traditional style quarterback play. It might have not been what you want to see in the NFL. It might have not, whatever. I don't care. But I feel like he's kind of caught in the upside down with some of that of, I am instructed to throw it away here. I am instructed to buy some time and find a guy downfield. I am instructed to do this, do that, whatever. And I feel like that is obstructing some of his quick thinking that we saw him have last year, where it was like, you're coming at me, I'm going to blow the doors off of this deal, and I'm out of here. Does any of that make sense to you, or am I off?
No, I think you're making total sense. That's a lot of what I see. I guess what they say, like a paralysis by analysis kind of deal, where you're just kind of maybe just taking an extra head second too long. And there's 2 things that you said I want to make sure that I very clearly expressed. This idea of what an NFL quarterback is antiquated, because to me, the two best quarterbacks in the NFL, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, are they traditional quarterbacks? I wouldn't say so. They both do a lot of things that don't jive with what we say. You know, even if you go to Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, when he's really rolling as a quarterback. So what the idea of like he's working to be NFL ready. Well, what is that? What is that? I mean, he's going to be that. That's my first thing. And the second thing is that, and I don't like getting into the players' heads, but I feel like what we know about Lenoris is that he's an extremely coachable, agreeable type of person. And I feel like he's almost being too coachable. Like he's really trying to take the coaching and put it on his game. Whereas some players might just be like, man, later for that, I'm gonna do what I know to do. I feel like he's trying really hard to do what he's coached to do, and it's maybe slowing him down a little bit.
I think another thing on that too is it's easy to forget. He's only started 16 games. You look at the quarterback, like a Jaden Daniels started something like 65 before he was a first-round pick in Washington and immediately was really good. You know, Pat Mahomes started a bunch of games at Texas Tech, who's still one of my favorite guys to watch in the NFL, along with the two you mentioned. And he started a lot of games in Lubbock. This is not the finished product, Lenore Sellers. This is 14 starts. If you gave him 24, you mean to tell me he wouldn't be better? He wouldn't take less sacks? He wouldn't see more open receivers? Of course he would. But we expect immediate results. And you look at some of the other guys that are struggling, Arch Manning, DJ Lagway. These are guys that don't have a lot of starts either. It's not easy. It's not easy playing quarterback in the SEC. You know.
Also, there's something to this idea of a sophomore slump, right? That is a thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of it they attribute to, you know, the defenses have figured you out and all, and that's possible. But sometimes the second time, you're just more in your head. Like you're trying to recreate what was last year,
right,
and is not available to you. So he's not the first great player to have gone through a little bit of a slump
right,
the second time out.
Yeah, no doubt. So point. My question was on the defensive end. I'm going to throw kind of a hypothetical. If this will kind of answer the bigger question a little bit, but I don't want you to think this is like a trick question. If you could pick one player off of last year's defense that you could now, Preston Thorne can wave his magic wand and grant an extra year of eligibility, or he doesn't go early for the draft, and he's in a Gamecock uniform this year and would help the most, who would it be off of that incredibly talented D?
Oh, man. First off,
I know you might need a few minutes on this one.
This is such a great question because
I wanted you to sweat mentally on this segment today, Preston.
This is good. I like this. There's so many of them that were obviously excellent last year. My bias, let me give you a cop-out answer. My bias wants me to take one of those two interior guys, whether it's TJ or Tonka. I just love watching those dudes play. And honestly, I probably would take Tonka. Let me make my statement. I would take Tonka just because of his versatility, his ability to play the run and also play the end. And he was so good in so many different ways on the team, almost like a Swiss Army knife for the defensive line, that I think for this year's team maybe he might play outside a little bit more and just be a little bit more of an anchor that was needed. And also just a veteran presence that might be needed to balance Dylan. So that's my answer. I'm sticking to it. It would be
it. And that would help. Certainly could have helped on Saturday because a lot of broken tackles, right? And last year, a lot of guys didn't make it to the second level because those holes were plugged by those two guys you're talking about. So it's easier to break a tackle from a linebacker than it is a 300-pound defensive tackle, right? I mean, I just think as good as this defense is, it's not last year's. And to me, it was kind of a trap to think that it was going to be just as good as last year's.
We said that on this show. I said that on my show. I know you said that, Mike. And I kept trying to tell people, like, I don't know if people realize how special of a unit that was last year, just from a talent perspective. Not only talent, but the way that they played. Because an easy thing you can say, well, they had all of these NFL dudes. They did, but also Debo's not playing in the NFL. How good was he last year? Alex Huntley, he's not in the league currently. He's on the practice squad, I believe. How good was he last year? They had so many dudes that were just awesome at knowing their roles. And so that defense was amazing. That was a special thing. That being said, I still think this defense has a chance to be really good because, believe it or not, out of all the things, I think tackling is something that you can get corrected.
Well, exactly. Look, I don't. And I agree with y'all. Like, I didn't come in thinking this group would be as good as they were last year. First of all, if you're going to be that good, you let them go prove it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't put those expectations on somebody like that. You let them go prove it. The tackling to me is the only issue on defense. I don't see a bunch of glaring weaknesses. They're very talented. There's no question about that. Would like them to be a little bit healthier, and we'll see where some of that goes this week with Brownlow Dindy and things of that nature. But if you get the tackling figured out, they have that gives them a couple of drives of complimentary football in the last 2 weeks. So we could be looking at totally different results right now heading into this Kentucky game. On that note, I'll say this about Dylan Stewart he's going to get a sack soon or a big tackle in the backfield, and it's going to hurt whoever it is. This kid is very frustrated, and you can see it. He's been grabbed and held and all that stuff all year long. He is flying off the football, Preston. But I also feel like at times, and I'm not I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'm just watching it. Sometimes he flies off so quick that it's like, oh, shoot, I'm about 3 yards past this guy. I need to turn around and go get him. Controlling him is going to be a really good thing for this defense because he'll start to contain some stuff back there that maybe they've been able to step through to this point. Have you seen his frustrations? Do you believe that stems from some tough calls or tough non-calls that have gone against him this year? Where do you think that's coming from?
Yeah, I think it might be going back to what we were talking about with Lenoris as far as like a little bit of a sophomore slump. Like now they know who you are. Now you're not sneaking up on anybody. Now they can slide protections your way. You're not necessarily getting the calls that you thought you were going to get. All of those types of things can be frustrating for a player who had so much success last year. But the thing I will say about Dylan in watching him is that you have not had to question his effort. He plays extremely hard on every play, and he's getting better at playing the run. And I'm here to tell anybody who will listen, dudes that are pass rush specialists or edge players, they don't always love to play the run, and they don't always love to play really hard when the ball's going the other way. And we haven't seen that out of Dylan to this point. So still a lot of reasons to be encouraged about his play, but he's growing up in the SEC, and it takes some time.
Spot on. It actually takes me back to something that Coach Muschamp said. It's one of my favorite sayings ever from the first time I heard him mention it in a press conference. It's a lot easier to say whoa than giddy up. I just love that. I love that in life. I think it's a wonderful comment, and that is Dylan Stewart. I'm not picking on Dylan Stewart, just so you know. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is I feel like he is just flying off 100% every time the ball is snapped. And it's almost like he's given up a couple of things, not intentionally. It's just the way he goes. They're trying to get him there. And he has been attacked this year, but he's gonna hurt somebody here soon. I mean, I don't mean that like I hope it's not obviously egregious, but you know what I'm getting at. Like somebody's gonna feel the wrath of this at some point in time. And I'm hoping that ignites it. The other thing that I've wondered about, I mentioned this yesterday with Pat DeMarco. And I don't know because we're not in the locker room, Preston, but last year through the first few games of the season, I could look on that field on both sides of the ball and I could tell you who the leaders were very easily. I don't know that I can do that this year. And I do wonder, what is the leadership like? Who has stepped into that role or who is willing to step into that role? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. And we just go back to the defense again. Obviously there was age and experience on the defense. Combine that with the talent. So you had your best players who were obviously very, very talented, but then you also had your leader type guys. I keep going back to Debo, going back to Boogie. Those guys were leadership type of dudes on the team. And not only that, but then you had right down the middle of the field, you had Cedric Knight playing there, or you had him, linebacker, older guy. Then in the back, you had Nick holding down the secondary. So I think you could see each one of those guys excelled at different parts of leadership. Offensive line-wise, it's probably we're just now maybe figuring this out, but Torricelli Simpkins was a game changer on the offensive line last year. Just from the obviously talented, he made a 53-man roster, so he was a hell of a football player. But besides that, and he got a penalty against Clemson, or he got 2 penalties against Clemson, which, okay, but mentality-wise, he brought a toughness mentality to them, and we haven't seen that displayed yet from the offensive line this year. Could it develop? Maybe, but we haven't seen that.
Gamecocks get Kentucky this week. It is a Wildcat team that, Mike knows this very well. We all know this very well. They will up and surprise somebody virtually every year, even in their down years. I mean, remember what happened last year in Oxford? You're left scratching your head going, I don't even know what did we just see out here? What just happened? Carolina needs to avoid that this week. It is a stop-the-run type team. You have got to stop Kentucky running the football. They're going to start a new quarterback this week in Cutter Boley, and you're going to have to make him beat you through the air. What are your keys this week? I mean, we already talked about one, tackling, so I'll take the words out of your mouth there and make this a little bit more challenging on you. What are your keys this week for South Carolina to get in to an off week with a 3-2 record?
I mean, if you don't think Mark Stoops is not looking at that film, seeing 285 rushing the ball, that's all he wants to do. I put the same tweet out every year. Mark Stoops loves nothing more than 10-7 going into halftime, 13-7, 9-6, or something like. He wants it to be as ugly and as on ground and pound as much as possible. So it's going to go back to the cliches of running the ball and stopping the run, obviously. But with this particular team, Kentucky, and Mark Stoops in particular, he wants to make the game ugly. He wants to make it short. He wants to make the game tight, like all of those things. And you have to be willing to be, and to add on to that, to go back to the concept of we don't know if this team is soft or not. I won't say that, but I do know this. You better be ready to be tough against a Mark Stoops team.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Remember, they were within. I mean, they lost Ole Miss 30-23, and this Wildcats team is determining their season right now.
Last year was the exception. We kind of went there and we got the best of them last year, early in the year. But every time we play Kentucky, it's a dogfight. Every single year, it's usually between 3-5. Usually it's a 1-score game. Something happens within those games. So they're going to need to be, packed. As Coach Holtz used to say, they're going to need to pack their toughness and their togetherness for this game for sure.
All right. These last 2 weeks, we're going to hope we get to flush these type conversations. Hopefully next week we're having a better one. Carolina goes into an off week with a win, get some things straightened out, and they come back ready to play some football. Because they've still got 8 games to go, Preston. They can still have a hell of a season. But right now they got to get some stuff figured out, no doubt about it. Great job as always, man. Even though you're from Somerville, we love you dearly. You know that. It's all good.
Appreciate y'all, man.
We'll see you next week, brother.
All right. Might be good.
Yeah, man. See you, bud. Appreciate it.
Preston Thorne.